you ever cut your finger with a paper cut and it was absolutely the most painful, stinging sensation ever? Well, today I'm going to dive into why inflammation is so needed to give us so much messaging so that we can learn to listen to the lost language of our body and to actually redirect ourselves to make very intentional actions to have more pleasure over pain. So my name is Natalie Pelto. I am the co-founder of Blue Life RX. I have multiple nutrition certifications and I have a background in healthcare of over 21 years. So pain and chronic illnesses and inflammation are things that I am extremely well versed in. And I spent a lot of time, as I usually joke with people, looking at people from the inside out, just watching this epidemic of chronic illnesses grow and grow and grow over my 21 years in healthcare. So I wanted to, and then I shifted into more of a nutritional base when we were impacted in my own family with a condition that affected our kids. And I had a little bit, I shouldn't say a little bit, a huge wake up call where I realized that we needed so much more than just all that healthcare could offer for us. We needed to take radical action and make big changes at home. But one thing that I had to learn along the way when my son was going through, he was completely nonverbal, was to learn the language of his body. And I'm not talking about necessarily body language, although that is part of it. I had to learn about pain and pleasure. I had to learn that our body has only one ability to speak to us, and that is through information that is built from these sensations. And we really can its only way to talk to us is by delivering pain or pleasure. I'm going to give you some examples of that. So I'm going to first of all dive into a little bit of, learning about inflammation. Some of you guys may be really new here, but inflammation for the most part is actually a good thing. I'm not talking about chronic inflammation. I'm talking about acute inflammation. And we see this when we cut ourselves with a paper cut. It is a warning sign that, hello, something terrible has happened. Please look and see, and this needs to be addressed. If we didn't have those pain receptors to give us this information, what would end up happening if we chopped our legs off by accident and we didn't feel it? Well, we would bleed out and this is a radical, obviously, example, but we would bleed out and we would die, and that would be terrible. So acute inflammation is there as a messaging system to let us know that something has gone wrong in our body. Now, to flip that around to talk about chronic inflammation, this is what we're seeing. So I'm not going to make this boring, but really what we're looking at in the world today is massive amounts of chronic inflammation, which means that it's inflammation that's happened so many times over that we've ignored. And so the messaging has to get louder and louder. And so our body creates these conditions, or has these conditions, I shouldn't say creates, but whether our toxic bucket is overfull, or we have nutritional deficiencies, or we have, exposures to different things in the world, to viruses, fungi, bacteria, let's just say we have something like that happens to us, and our terrain, our body is depleted and not able to fight these things off, then our body has to talk to us louder and louder and louder. So the more we ignore those little itty bitty nudges of pain, which is so easy to do in our society. We live in a 9-to-5 grind often, where if we're busy, which as a mom, we're busy, like all the hats we wear, and we have multiple hats as women, as men, we wear multiple hats in a day. And as we go into these hats these versions of ourselves that we use in the world. So some of us are moms, some of us are dads, some of us are workers, some of us are business owners. When we get into the busy part of this, it's so easy to ignore these really silent and subtle messages, a twinge here, a headache there. We have all of these over-the-counter medications now to overcome these little twinges, but they are all actually a messaging system of a deeper root issue. So I'm going to give you guys a really powerful tip to actually get this messaging a lot clearer. I'm going to give you guys a couple of different areas, first of all, that can cause chronic inflammation, where we see most of it come. And I'm going to give you one really great tip that I use with all of my clients when they first onboard with me, to really pinpoint and pivot and shift out of actions and things that are causing us those little pains from a root cause standpoint to move over into more vitality, longevity, and energy, and have this connection to our language of our body that's so clear, focused, and connected that we can pivot and shift almost as these root causes are occurring. So one of the most common areas that we see things happening in the body is overtoxicity. Our toxic capacity becomes compromised from things that we actually just think are okay and normal in our day-to-day. These are things like cleaning products. These are things like the makeup we put on our face. For men, it could be your shaving cream, your shampoo. Let's just say, and if you actually didn't watch my last video, it's all about how shampoo can make you gain weight. It talks a little bit more about toxicity in depth, so make sure to watch it. It'll be linked at the end of this video. But it is really important for us to realize that sometimes the root cause can be as simple as shifting our toxic exposures that we're having in our day-to-day. The second one is usually nutritional deficiencies or eating toxic substances that we don't realize are toxic substances because they're readily available. They're often in packaged foods that's made to look very beautiful. And many of them even hold this wonderful little phrase that in the health industry we call the health halo, which the health halo, if I can give you this little piece of information, is this ability for companies to market to us in a way that makes their food look better than it is. And it could be something that has nuts and seeds, but is covered in sugar. But because they claim to have your daily recommended serving of magnesium or iron or whatever maximum nutrient that they want to talk about, we think they're healthier. And so we actually consume more of it. And this is what we call the health halo, is when a food is not necessarily as it seems, and we consume, and because we think it's healthy, it has a health halo. And so we feel as humans that we can consume more of it. And then we start to get these symptoms. So I'm going to teach you a way to reconnect to the language of the body. This is like the super easiest thing to do that will allow you to know if a food that you're eating or something that you're exposing yourself to is actually impacting you in a positive or negative way, thus allowing you to either change it, shift it, or remove it so that you can actually start to live a life without this thing that isn't serving you and is going to allow you to redirect your energy and replenish your energy in a way that's really self-sufficient and really, really promotes vitality. So the trick is, this number one tip that I always use is to tell my clients to set an alarm 1 hour or 45 minutes to 1 hour after they eat. The reason that this is actually a really powerful practice versus micro exposures to toxins is that micro exposures to toxins can sometimes take a little bit to show up, even though when you remove them, you usually start feeling better right away. But this is a great way for you to really start to get connected to the language of the body. And having this conversation with your body, this nonverbal conversation with your body, is a powerful practice that you can use every day, all day, to constantly check in and know if your environment is toxic for you, whether it be people, foods, actually anything. So the way that it works is once you've set your alarm for 45 minutes after you've eaten, all you're going to do is take a moment. I would give it at least a good 30 seconds to do a quick body scan. The body scan should happen from the top of your head. So if you want to join me right now, close your eyes, take a body scan from the top of your head and let your intentions or your awareness really go around your eyes, your jaw, and see if it's clenched. Let your body scan go along your shoulders, see if they're tight, see if your chest is feeling tight or if it's relaxed, see if your belly has butterflies, cramping, discomforts, see if your energy is depleted or if you feel elevated and like you could go for a nice long hike. See if your legs are sore. Do you have twinges or pain? And so this is really a good indicator if you start to notice that you're like sluggish an hour after you eat, that food is actually not energizing you. And so you should do a pivot and shift. Now, the pivot and shift, if you wanted to know that is easiest, is for a lot of people who are starting these transitions into, trying to figure out what foods are going to support them. They realize pretty quickly that a lot of the foods that they love are actually foods that they generally have aversions to, whether they be leafy greens or nuts and seeds. But a great way to do this is to learn about picky eating for adults, which we have an amazing masterclass for that And it's something that we teach very, very heavily in our membership portal. So if you want to have access to the free masterclass to learn about transitioning using picky eating practices, just make sure to click the link below. It'll be found there. And again, if you're interested in toxicity and what I was talking about at the beginning of the video as the other inflammatory issue, there's also an amazing little email series that you can register for that will really show you how much toxicity impacts our bodies and our toxic bucket. But for now, take this education that you have and start to implement it right away. I cannot wait to hear what you guys come up with. Let me know. Drop it in the comments if you try the practice, if you start to notice that there are very specific foods that are impacting you. I'll share vulnerably as a story that for me, every time I eat chips, which are my favorite, and also full of fat, sugar, and really terrible seed oils. And unfortunately, now that I have been eating, vegan for a long time, when I do have a chip or I do have something that's of the same similar salty, fatty combination, I often end up with a very, very hard dip in energy, and I end up with a headache. And so this is a really powerful tool. Like, my body is now able to scream at me when I give it something that it's not liking. But over years, I used to actually eat those every day, and I used to just push it to the side. And my hormones took a huge heavy hit, and I had huge disruptions in my monthly cycles. And that's just me vulnerably sharing that it impacts toxicity, and the foods we eat impact all of our systems, specifically our endocrine system, which kind of runs the show in some ways. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to check out the links below. Make sure to check out the other video that is linked in here about, is your shampoo making you fat? And have a great day, guys.